NFL Talk with Elite Wages.
Yo, welcome back to another episode of NFL Talk with Elite Wages. Obviously, I am your host, Elite Wages, and this is a Christmas special this week. I don't normally do one this early, but, you know, obviously we've got Christmas Day games this week, so we've got two Christmas Day games, and we've also got a Monday Night Football game, but for me, obviously being in the UK, this game technically starts on Christmas Eve, so we're going to class this as a Christmas game as well, just for my benefit, really. So yeah, we got Christmas Eve Packers game, and then we got two Christmas Day games. I'm not going to run down on last week's, Sunday, NFL Sunday's results just yet. I'll leave that for another day. Obviously, again, appreciate Daily, college football, college basketball for coming on last week and giving all his insights and picks and preview for the college football playoffs last week. I know we did cash a few of those bets, and we got really close on some of those little future bets as well. But ultimately, again, I'll go over those in another episode. I'll leave that for another day. So let's get started into this week, and it's going to be the Monday Night Football game, which is obviously a Christmas Eve game for us UK viewers.
Monday Night Football.
So yeah, Monday Night Football / Christmas Eve. It's my Packers against the New Orleans Saints, and for obvious reasons, this is my game of the week. And it's obviously going to be my favourite game from over the Christmas period as well. If that even is a thing. Given this is my Packers in prime time, being from the UK, the game starts at 1:25 a.m. on the 24th of December, making that a Christmas Eve game. So hence the reason why I've saved this game for a little Christmas special rather than add it on to the end of last week's episode as a Monday Night Football game. So I wanted to find a really good play so I can get really excited about my Christmas start and my Christmas with a bang. But it hasn't been that easy. I've instead resorted to playing a safe bet. Obviously using my logical brain rather than getting overexcited about this game. The spread in this game favours the Packers by 2 touchdowns, and I've never sort of fancied laying that kind of spread, even though I do like the Packers to win big in this game. The Packers team total is 27.5, and I feel like that could be a little too high, especially with the odds way down at 1.7, where for that kind of odds, for those kind of numbers, we normally see this around 1.9. And obviously another powerhouse bet for the Packers and for myself has been Josh Jacobs touchdown, but the odds are way under 1.5 now as well. So again, using my logical brain, I found a play that it's not very exciting, but I do believe it hits fairly comfortably. It's going to be a very cold, snowy, windy night in Lambeau Field on Monday. Conditions that rookie Spencer Rattler isn't going to be used to, as he played college football at Oklahoma and South Carolina. Both of those two are the warmest conferences in the country. With the environment playing a huge factor in this game, both passing games will take a hit, and both passing games will struggle. Last season, Jordan Love did play very well in December. It was probably one of his best months to play. But again, I think this is more of a run game. I think the pass games will, dip in performance a little bit. So yeah, that means another ground game. That'll suit the Packers really well. This Packers team is averaging 4.7 yards per carry, which is 7th best in the league, as well as averaging the 4th most rushing yards per game with 144. Running the ball has been something that they've done often, and they've done it really well. They tend to see around 30 carries per game and run the ball the second most amount of times in the league, with a 51% run play percentage. In addition to this, their opponents have just so happened to also be fairly good in the run game themselves. The Saints average 4.4 yards per carry. They rank just below the Packers in 12th, and they sit in 11th for most rushing yards per game with 124. With this game pretty much being reliant on the run game for the most part, the clock will continue to roll. I believe the game total of 42 signifies a low-scoring game because of this, and I will agree on this. I'm gonna be taking the under 43. It's gone up from 42 to 43, so I'm gonna be taking the under 43 points. The Packers' offense has been hot for the majority of the season, but I do expect it to cool down slightly in these cold conditions. So I'm going to go 1 unit Packers Saints under 43, odds of 1.9. But we're not done yet. We're not done yet. I can't have one player on my Packers team. So yeah, we're going to piggyback off of that bet, and I'm going to make an additional little same game parlay, which I really like. As I mentioned, I believe this to be a run-heavy game script for the Packers and probably the Saints too. After all, both teams have been fairly good at running the ball. Kamara is out for this game, but backup Miller, he looked good in last week. He's looked good when he stepped in his little cameos and things like that. So to me, it's not really a concern for this game. Turnovers have been a good thing and a bad thing for the Packers this season. They are a top 3 team for takeaways per game, averaging almost 2 per game. But Jordan Love has thrown his fair share of interceptions too. So ball security for Green Bay is key in this game. Significantly as well, in the past couple of weeks where Jordan Love hasn't thrown as many interceptions, Josh Jacobs and the running unit have had more carries. So that could be a little factor to think in as well. Into the over and into this bet as well. So yeah, Josh Jacobs has done a solid job at handling the ball. He can handle the pressure and all the trust for this offense, I believe. So the Saints, they're also averaging, they're averaging at least 1 giveaway per game. So a similar thing could be said for them. Handing the ball off could be safer for the Saints rather than throwing into this elite Packers secondary. It would not surprise me in the slightest to see multiple rushing touchdowns in this game. That's actually where my parlay is going to start. So I'm going to start with the first leg being over 1.5 rushing touchdowns. Both teams average 1 rushing touchdown per game, and both teams allow an average of 1 rushing touchdown per game. So at least 2 touchdowns have been scored in 8 of the last 10 games for the Packers and 7 in the last 10 for the Saints. The next leg in my parlay is going to be the most obvious one, I think, and that's going to be Josh Jacobs to score a touchdown. So Jacobs has 13 touchdowns on the year, including 5 straight games. In these 5 games, he's now scored 9 in total. Again, backing up how important and trusted he is in this Packers offense. I believe this is a no-brainer for there to be 2 rushing touchdowns in the game, and I think the obvious choice is for at least one of those to be from Josh Jacobs. So yeah, that's the same game parlay, and that's going to be over 1.5 rushing touchdowns and a Josh Jacobs touchdown, and that's going to give you odds of 1.83. I don't actually have a soundbite for Christmas Day, would you believe it or not? But we're going to move on to the Christmas Day game. We're going to start off with the Chiefs and the Steelers game. Should be a very, very exciting one. Obviously, the Steelers took a hit last week, and the Chiefs, grabbed a win. So both teams obviously played on Saturday last week, and they're both coming off a short week. Saturday to Wednesday, not much time off. 2 different results for both teams. The Chiefs grabbed a win, like I said, and the Steelers, they suffered a loss, but it wasn't just a loss, it was a huge dent in their division title push as well. The Steelers have been a solid team for the majority of the season. Their offense has picked up since Wilson was named starter, but the defense is really what sets this team apart from the rest. The Steelers are allowing the 6th least points per game to opponents, averaging 19.9 per game. However, they have let slip a little bit in the last few games. In the last 4 weeks, they allow the Bengals 38, Eagles 27, and the Ravens 34, averaging 33 points across those 3 games. Offensively, the Steelers haven't faced many top 10 defensive teams, but they have struggled in these games that they have. So they scored 20, 13, and 13 against those 3 teams. On Christmas Day, they'll take on Kansas City Chiefs, and obviously they are one of those top 10 defensive units. Kansas City rank in 4th for least points allowed, averaging 18.5, so slightly better than the Steelers. In 11 of 15 games, the Chiefs have held opponents to 20 points or under. So the Steelers have actually only scored 20 or more in 7 of 15 games, so not even 50%. In the last 4 weeks, the Chiefs' defense has been extremely good, allowing all four teams under 20 points, averaging just 15 points per game to opponents in those 4 games. Offensively, they found a rhythm. They rank just outside the top 10, averaging 23 points per game. But this season, they've struggled with, to win convincingly. With obviously the obvious stat that keeps coming up is 10 of their 14 wins being 1-score wins, so relatively close games. The spread for this game has been set at -2.5, favouring the Chiefs. I did consider taking this as the Chiefs have found ways to just win. They're winning games in really, really silly ways. But they haven't, won by a lot in most games. A lot of the wins in the past 4 games have been by 3 points, 2 points, 2 points. So, they can literally win by 1 point, and they don't cover too often. But I actually believe this is going to be a defensive battle. I think we're going to have a Christmas Day defensive unit standoff. Both defenses being, the standout units for both teams. Emphasising slow down the other team's offense is going to be key, especially for the Steelers trying to slow down Patrick Mahomes. And obviously, with just as much respect to Wilson as well, the Chiefs defense is going to try and want to slow him down as well, so he didn't take over the game. So I actually think 43.5 may be a little too many points for these two defensive beasts. Obviously you got Carl Loftus, Chris Jones, TJ Watt, Highsmith as well. You got a lot of really, really good pass rushers and things like that to get to the opposing quarterback. So I think there's a lot of factors in this game where points are going to be quite scarce. I'm going to go 1 unit on the Chiefs and Steelers under 43.5 at odds of 1.9. And then we go on to the final game of the Christmas period. So it's only a short week, 3 games in this little Christmas special, and it's the Texans and Ravens. So another 2 teams who played on Saturday night, another 2 teams who got completely different results. So I'm going to keep this one relatively short, I think. The Ravens grabbed a huge win on the road against a division rival. The Texans got beat out by 8 against the Chiefs. The Texans will now host the Ravens with, Tank Dell out after he suffered that dislocated kneecap. A few more players doubtful for this game as well after leaving early against the Chiefs. So a few injuries for the Texans. But that Tank Dell injury could be really significant in this game. The Texans wide receiver room is really a little bit depleted. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is out from earlier in the season. Obviously, Tank Dell is now out, so Nico Collins will only have Robert Woods for company in the pass game. Stroud has already struggled this year. He's thrown so far 11 interceptions, and he's been sacked 47 times so far this year. And obviously now he's got 1 less star receiver for him to target. It's going to be a huge loss for him. The Texans have been a mixed bag this season. They're sitting at a 9-6 record. They've struggled to be consistent on offense or defense, averaging 23 points per game allowed on offense and 21 points per game allowed on defense. The Ravens are one of those teams you just can't allow time on the ball. They're obviously one of the best offensive teams in the NFL. They sit at 10-5, top of the AFC North. The Ravens sit 3rd in points per game on average with 30. Coincidentally, they've scored 30 or more points in 9 of their 10 wins. The one game that they didn't achieve this, they ended on 28, so they averaged 35 points per game in their wins, which is absolutely huge. The Baltimore Ravens are the 2nd best rushing team in the league too, obviously behind Derrick Henry, averaging a huge 182 rushing yards per game, which is a large mismatch as Houston allow over 100 per game. If the Ravens don't beat you on the ground, they will through the air. They're again a top 5 team in the passing game as well. They average 242 through the air. Defensively, they've been struggled to be consistent, allowing 23 points per game on average, but in the last 2 weeks they've managed to keep the Giants and Steelers under 20 points. I think this game favours the Ravens heavily in all aspects, with the Texans now down another offensive weapon. I believe the Ravens will win big in this game, so I think the -3 spread is a little bit too short for the Ravens. And then obviously, like I said, the run game and the passing game for the Ravens is significantly ranked higher than the Texans. Add into that as well the fact that the Ravens have scored 35 points on average in all their wins, over 30 points in all but one, 28 points in all. So the team total could be a nice little play in this game as well. I'm actually just checking now for the odds. I don't think the odds are up for team totals yet, but I am going to go 1 unit on the Ravens -3 at odds of 1.9. Let me just check that team total if it is on. If it is on, I think I'm going to take that as well. No, it's not up yet. But if that team total is around sort of 20, if it's 20 between 25 and 28, I think I'll take that as well. So that's a little additional bet if it does come up within those lines. But yeah, just to recap those 3 games, we've got the Packers and Saints under 43 at odds of 1.9. We've got the little same game parlay, which is over 1.5 rushing touchdowns in the Packers and Saints game, and Josh Jacobs to score a touchdown at odds of 1.83. We've got the Saints and Steelers under 43.5 at odds of 1.9, and then we've also got the Ravens -3 at odds of 1.9, and potentially the Ravens team total over if it's between sort of 25 and 28-ish. That could be one to keep an eye on as well. I am going to end this episode like I said I would in last week's episode. I'm going to end it with a little bit of a fantasy insight. The fantasy app that I use, Fantasy Game Day, I am actually partnered with. They do give me a 50% off code, and they give me a free entry. So if you use my code, which is ELITE, ELITE, you will get a free entry after your first paid entry, which is very handy considering we've got 2 Christmas Day games. You can pay for the first, get the second one free if you use my code. Unfortunately for me at the moment, the lines aren't quite up. Obviously there's a game tonight, the Packers game, so I assume the fantasy selections for Christmas Day will be out tomorrow, but I will share a few of my little insights for my fantasy picks this week in those 2 games.
Fantasy football.
So I don't think it's going to be any sort of surprise to see who my captain for these Christmas Day games is going to be. I'm going to go with Derrick Henry. He's obviously been hugely dominant all year. I'm just going to run through a few of his stats and things like that to try and back up why I'm going to use Derrick Henry. 15 games played this year. He's second in the NFL for total rushing yards. He averages 109 rushing yards per game. He has the 3rd most rushing attempts in the NFL, and he has the second highest yards per carry with 5.9 in the NFL as well. Obviously rushing touchdowns, he has 13. He's 3rd in the NFL for that. He does get targeted a little bit in the passing game as well. He has 152 yards, 15 receptions, averages 10 yards per reception, 2 receiving touchdowns too, so he can get a little bit of an extra point there with the potential of a receiving touchdown. Sort of key highlights. In last week's win against the Steelers, Henry recorded 7 explosive runs, which is the most by any player in a single game this season. He also ran between the tackles on 62% of carries, allowing his ability to be showcased in his dominant, physical matchups. His 5.9 yards per carry is a career best, and it highlights his incredible efficiency, even at the age of 30. His fantasy outlook, he's a top option for running back 1. Again, 109 rushing yards per game. He's a reliable choice for a touchdown as well, so he is a reliable option in fantasy to gain multiple yardage and things like that and multiple points. But the one thing I am going to say, which is a negative for this option, is a lot of people are going to be picking Derrick Henry this week as their captain. So be wary of everyone else picking Derrick Henry if you do pick him. I am going to pick him personally. I don't think there's anyone else that can sort of outplay Derrick Henry this week. I'm going to go for Derrick Henry. Again, another option I'm going to go for in the running back department. I would normally say Joe Mixon, but I think he's got a bit of a tough matchup this week, especially with the workload now. He's going to be sort of solely reliant. He's going to have to pick up the slack with no tank down, things like that. But I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt, I think, as a running back option. Obviously, he's been solid somewhat. He's been quite inconsistent this year. Obviously, with he only came in a little bit late after the Pacheco injury, and obviously now Pacheco's back. Sort of his workload has dipped a little bit, but he has played 12 games. He's got 191 carries, 708 rushing yards per game as well, which is, if you think about it, is fairly good considering he came into the season late, nearly touching 1,000 yards. He's got 6 rushing touchdowns as well. Obviously, he's been a dual threat running back since he came into this league. So yeah, he can be targeted in the run game as well. He's slightly below average in his yards per carry, but then that's technically not really his fault. The Kansas City offensive line has struggled, but he has been a reliable option in short yardage situations and red zone situations as well. He scored 6 rushing touchdowns this season. In last week's win against the Texans, he had one of his better games. He actually rushed for 55 yards on 11 carries. He scored a touchdown. He added 24 receiving yards on 2 catches. And obviously he outplayed Isaiah Pacheco, who he's actually struggled since he came back from the injury. Obviously that was the reason for Hunt coming back to the Chiefs. He's not a primarily receiving back, but he is a fairly good dual threat back when he is targeted. He, like I said, 176 receiving yards on 23 receptions on the year. He's seen, his workload has dipped. It's increased. It's dipped. It's not really consistent. He's had 5 carries in week 14, and he had 27 in week 9. So it's sort of fluctuated quite a lot throughout the season. The inconsistency, it does make him a risk in fantasy, but in my opinion, the usage that he had last week and the fact that he was able to outplay Isaiah Pacheco, I think he's worth a shot in this week's game. And if Pacheco could struggle, Hunt could step in and see a significant uprise in usage again. But again, he's going to sort of consistently get you around 50 yards, and he's always got the potential for a touchdown. He's a really good ball carrier in the end zone and in the red zone as well. So a running back option for me in fantasy this week is going to be Kareem Hunt. And I'm going to go with one more suggestion as well, and it's going to be in the quarterback department. Now, when you think about it, on these Christmas Day games, you've got Patrick Mahomes, you've got Lamar Jackson, you've got Russell Wilson, and you've got C.J. Stroud. So all, when you think about it, big throwers. They can all throw for 300, whenever they want. A few of these players can run the ball as well. Russell Wilson's obviously been known to use his legs. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is a very, very good rushing quarterback. Patrick Mahomes can also use his legs. C.J. Stroud can also use his legs. So they've all got the potential for a lot of passing yards, a lot of rushing yards. They can all throw interceptions. They can all throw touchdowns. So they're all very, very, very similar in that way. But this week, I'm actually going to go with a bit of a slight sort of underdog quarterback. The potential is a lot higher than the actual upside, if that makes sense. So I'm actually going to go with Russell Wilson. So he's played 9 games this year since becoming a starter. Well, he actually had one of those games he came in, but he's played 9 games. He's got a completion percentage of 64.9%. His average yards per attempt are 7.9. He's got 15 passing touchdowns with 4 interceptions. So that's that's a good mix up there. He averages 101 passer rating. But he's been very, very good. He's been very, very consistent. He's thrown a touchdown in all but one game in all the games that he's started since becoming a starter. Like I said, 4 interceptions with 15 passing touchdowns. He's obviously maintained that strong passer rating of 101 across the season. His standout performance came against the Bengals a couple of weeks back. He actually threw for 414 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had a pass rating of 126. But in the recent game against the Chiefs, against the Ravens, Wilson had a mixed outing. He threw 2 touchdowns. He also had a costly interception and a fumble near the goal line as well. That significantly impacted the Steelers' chances, and they actually forced them to lose in a way. The Steelers are currently 10-5. They're tied for first with the Ravens, and they're going to actually need him to pull through. And be able to overcome any obstacle in this game on Christmas Day. Obviously, George Pickens is out, and he's been the key guy for Russell Wilson, and that's sort of limited him a little bit since he went out of injury. But playing the Kansas City Chiefs, it's a crucial game for playoff positioning, and we all know that the Chiefs secondary can be exploited at any time. So Russell Wilson certainly looks like a guy who can be able to put up yardage and things like that against this kind of secondary. So I am going to take a shot, and I'm going to go for Russell Wilson as my quarterback this week. So again, I'm going to go Russell Wilson for the quarterback. I'm going to go for Kareem Hunt as my running back option, with Derrick Henry as my captain slot. So again, like I said, I use Fantasy Game Day app, and if you use my code ELITE, ELITE, you get your first entry free after a first paid entry. And yeah, so good luck to anyone that does fantasy this week. And let me know who you're going to be picking on Christmas Day as well. I'd love to tailor for you. I've got a few entries that I can place. So if you've got any that you'd like to suggest, drop it in the comments below. And as well as the fantasy partnership, I'm actually partnered with another app called it's from Pine Sports. It's called JaXon, and basically all the insights I get for my picks and things like that come from JaXon, and it's an AI sports chat, and it basically gives you all the different edges, different angles, different insights, all the stats and things like that you need to basically to be a good better. I'm up heavy on the year. I haven't got my exact stats from the season to hand, but I know we're up around 10 units on the season. We're hitting at a good 55% clip, and it's mainly down to the help of JaXon. This sports chat, you literally just type in anything you want. If you want a player prop, you type in that player's name, and it comes up with all the stats, the key matchups, everything, and it's a really good companion app for your gambling needs. So you can head on over to Pine Sports and to JaXon app, and you can subscribe there. You can have a little free trial, and if you use my code ELITE, ELITE, you get 50% off your first purchase as well, which is really, really handy. So get on over there. I'll link it in the link tree, as I always do. So if you could all be so kind, click on the link tree, follow all my social media. So you got my Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube, TikTok. You got the link for JaXon, you got the link for Fantasy Game Day app, you got my Twitter, everything. If you can go to them all, drop me a like, a follow back, subscribe, share. It's all free, and by you sharing this, it helps me get to a wider audience, so I can help more and more people win money as well. So appreciate everyone for listening so long. It was meant to be a short one. I kind of babbled on a little bit in the fantasy segment, but yeah, appreciate everyone for listening this long, and hope everyone has a very, very Merry Christmas with their friends and family. Hope everyone stays safe, and I will catch you later.